Welcome to another Gimmicks bonus episode. Derek, I'm so excited to talk to you about Netflix interactive media, except that I'm not. Bonus episodes, we meant to do these to have fun with each other and do very little research, and every single thing that I read about these only made me more angry. So I'm going to force you to be angry as well.
Yeah, I mean, David, I think you did more research than I did on this. So I think you are probably in the weeds of the set. Although, you know, at this point, half of our bonuses that we've done have been like this and like a show that we like being canceled. So like,
right.
You know, I think
these are pretty sad. These are like sad bonus episodes.
Yeah, these are all like this is like a whole like post-mortem like R.I.P. memorial to a project that is ceasing to exist and that you'll never be able to replicate or find or revisit again theoretically. At least not in a way that it was intended to be engaged with.
True story. More on that in a second. But what we're doing is we were going to cover Black Mirror for this season of Gimmicks, and it's going to be an exciting episode. But when we were talking about it, we looked at some of the interactive media, and about the time that we were recording that episode was the last day to engage with Netflix's interactive catalog, or the interactive catalog that was left at that date. And as of today, they are all gone, Derek. Have you tried to access these since the removal date? What was sort of like, did you even catch the window being closed?
Yeah, all of the smaller scale ones that I'd never heard of, they vanished before I even knew about it.
Right.
But I did rewatch Bandersnatch, and I watched the Kimmy Schmidt one actually for the first time, literally the day it was supposed to go off, like for both of them. I just watched them both back to back and had a little afternoon of interactive specials, and then they were gone. And I haven't tried to look it up on my app, but like I was curious because if you like Google Netflix interactive specials, that like link to the page still shows up in your Google results, but you click on it, and mine, it was like blank for a second, and then it did eventually actually redirect to their games, mobile games page.
Okay, that was my experience as well, because I was actually trying to watch it because I thought, I'm like 6 hours ahead. I got up early. I was like, when will the window actually close? And it wasn't. When I woke up the morning of Monday, whenever the change had happened, it hadn't happened yet in Cupertino or wherever it matters. And so I went about my day. The next time I checked, it was gone.
Yeah.
Now, I, like you, went and revisited these experiences the last day we could. I had a terrible quality experience, and I racked that up to everybody else trying to access the same media at the same time.
Like, was it like a buffer thing or something? Or
yeah, it was like super grainy to the point that like we've been fooled by this before in the Adventure Time episode. But I was like, no, I don't think this is a intended grainy experience. I think this is like a me having shitty internet or everyone trying to access it at the same time.
Yeah, that sucks. Had you seen, did you watch Bandersnatch and Kimmy Schmidt?
So I watched all of Bandersnatch, and I actually did that a couple times.
Oh, wow.
Because I knew, I thought that would be most of our conversation.
Yeah. And that one has the most like alternate routes and stuff like that too. In that one.
Truly. And, because it's Black Mirror, it's like part of the experience. Mm-hmm. I put on the Kimmy Schmidt one, and I'm not going to lie, I picked the wrong choice, I think, kind of early on. And the recovery from that was a little grating to me, and I just stopped. And that was my experience with Kimmy versus the Reverend.
Did you choose to have her not read the book at all? Is that the one?
Yes. Maybe that was it. Or
I
made out with Daniel Radcliffe, because why wouldn't I?
Well, because you can make out, you can like do one or the other or something, and it will remind you. It's interesting. I think it's the thing we can talk about how they work and stuff like that if we want to, but like it is interesting. Like for that one, there are certain safety measures that are on it, so you don't have to start all the way over, but only if you still do certain things later on. So I know like with that, like the reading the book thing is so plot important that if you don't read the book and do one of the other choices at first, it will allow you to rewind back. And then if you make the alternate choice again, then it just sticks with that and you don't read the book. And then you get to the point in the end where she can't move forward with the plot without reading the book. And there's another thing where if you chose to babysit the baby, then it will rewind back to that one and she'll read the book to the baby. So you don't have to start all the way over, but you still have to start a few scenes back. So like there's like a light safety measure, but that's like the only time in that one that I've seen where it like has that safety measure in it, but you still have to like check a few other boxes for it. I don't know. It's weird. I think there's a conversation about like how well that type of idea works in a video game versus an interactive narrative special, and how these sort of balance it and maybe haven't quite perfected what that could have been and now won't have the chance to because they're going away.
Right. So a couple different things on this though. I wanted to ask you, like, besides the Netflix of this all, is interactive fiction something that you are interested in, Derek? Outside of, I mean, in the television world, Netflix is kind of it. But are there other interactive fictions that you've engaged with throughout your life?
I guess so. I guess it depends on what you count as it, but like visual novels, I like visual novels whenever I count them. I'm not like a huge reader or player, whatever you call it, of visual novels necessarily, but I have engaged with some of them. And I feel like there's like games that are like, you know, like dating sim type things that are basically visual novels more than they're video games.
Right.
And I like those things whenever I play them. I'd like to play more of them, to be honest. I just, you know, and I guess like then the next level down from that would be like Telltale games, which are like still more video gamey, but still kind of in the realm of like a narrative story being told that you interact with. And obviously the classic choose your own adventure, like literal books too. I fucking love that stuff. Like love that. Ate that up as a kid and would, I don't know. I will say like engaging with these and reading about these is sort of like, I should fucking pick up some more like current choose your own adventure books. Like that sounds fun. Like that's the thing that I'm like sort of missing in life.
Yeah.
And it is really easy nowadays to like, you can make your own interactive online choose your own adventure too. Like I played around with Quest, like that sort of text adventure software that you can download. That's super easy to use. People can use it to do like full on text adventure coding stuff, but you can also do a very basic, like write a script, put different choices and they branch out. Like I played around with that just for fun. And it's always been a thing where it's sort of like, maybe I should just like make one for real. Why not? Cause it's really easy to do. So like, yeah, I think just in general, I think it's a really cool platform to tell stories and like make games in sort of an accessible way, you know?
Yep. It's fun because obviously the choose your own adventure books are probably the earliest mode of this. And we actually talked on Lee Carvalho's about like our shared history around choose your own adventure books. So I pegged you and Tommy as like adventure book readers. That was not a big surprise. Me too. Loved them. I do think that even then as a child, you knew that the ending you got where you didn't progress further and you knew that you hadn't read 2/3 of the book was the quote wrong ending.
Yeah.
And so I think that the Bandersnatch story actually gets into a lot of this, that like there is a path to the end that has the credits to it.
Yeah.
And that is considered sort of a final endpoint. And there are a few of those built in to the Bandersnatch story. And then you and I, as sophisticated gamers, are used to this, right? Like right before we pushed record, we were talking about Dragon Age. Dragon Age is a series that has multiple different endings that we are exposed to.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. I think like when you're like people who play a lot of video games that aren't necessarily like have a narrative straight line, I think get that, where it's sort of like an RPG, for example, when you're playing a game, you see a path one way and a path the other way. You can usually figure out, if you played enough of them, like this seems like the main story path. This seems like a side quest path. I'm going to go down the side quest path first and then loop back to the story path. And that's kind of how you can play these types of things. So part of the fun of these Netflix choose your own adventures are sort of like, this obviously is the wrong decision, but I'm going to make like Kimmy Schmidt like blow up the guy with a bazooka. No, she wouldn't actually do that in the narrative. That would be out of character for her, but I'm going to do it, see how it goes. And then I'm sure the movie will tell me it's wrong and then rewind it and I can choose the right choice so I can see all of it. So it's sort of like the appeal of it is being able to see basically sort of alternate universes, and then the completionist completionist desire to see every version of a story you can possibly see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like Bandersnatch, for example, it is expected for you to have about an hour to 75 minutes of an experience from start to finish. Mm-hmm. And yet there are 312 minutes that have been recorded for this series. Some of those are duplicated scenes with a different musical track or a different visual aid. And I was kind of interested in what you thought about the decisions that we made in Bandersnatch. Like, what cereal would you like in the morning, or what tape are you going to put in your tape player?
Yeah, I think it's really fun. I think, I do think that Bandersnatch, what makes it so appealing is I do think it seems to have a lot of fun in playing in the choose your adventure things in the way that some other similar sort of things, including Kimmy Schmidt, to be honest, don't really, where it's like you have minor choices that don't actually matter. It is just sort of like you're almost kind of making your own version of the TV show. So yeah, what serial you pick or what music track you're playing affects it. But I think the other thing that Bandersnatch does that's really clever is that it sort of encourages you to make the wrong decision and then play it again, because there are some decisions you can only and endings you can only get if you've replayed the same thing multiple times. Because part of the fun of Bandersnatch is that it is very meta and self-aware, and it's about characters that sort of become aware that they are living in a choose your own adventure and being guided, and so they will comment on sort of like, no, you made that choice wrong last time, like this feels like we met before, and then you play that again, they make a different decision, and then that leads you down a completely different path you only were able to go down because you kept making the wrong, or in some cases the same wrong decision multiple times, which is like, that is kind of a mind fuck that, for Black Mirror, totally makes a lot of sense that they'd be doing it because they play in that space all the time.
Absolutely. And so that, I think, made my cosmetic decisions actually they felt more impactful, because I felt like that actually is something that I could control, and it didn't really have narrative weight. It was just sort of about personalizing this experience. And I thought that was really, really interesting, because outside of that, I really wanted to see everything from there.
Yeah.
But I didn't ever care about seeing the other box of cereal. Like, I was just like, oh, it's a box of cereal. Like, fine, whatever. But that comes back in sort of a little flashback part of 2/3 second act, third act around there.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because a lot of these things, I think what I like about these things being utilized in shows you are already familiar with and worlds that already sort of exist, or that it means you can't be super strict about like canon or anything, because these are, maybe the Kimmy Schmidt we can talk about, because I think that takes a different approach to it. But like the idea of like, you are kind of, again, crafting your own version of this story. Like that's the interactive part isn't just you are pressing a button and then seeing how a character dies in a funny way or something. It's more like you are crafting what this story is. The Bandersnatch reveals are completely different depending, and backstory are completely different depending on what choices you make, based on if you're interested in one thing or another. Are you interested in taking this very seriously, and it's just about a guy who goes crazy and murders his dad? Are you more interested in sort of like an interesting conspiracy theory where his parents were actually like manipulating him and testing him all his life? Are you interested in like just a wacky fantasy meta thing where like you are talking to this character as someone watching Netflix, and he becomes aware of Netflix and realizes he's in a TV show and like has a cool fight with his with his psychiatrist? Like, those are three completely different Black Mirror episodes that you are creating and controlling which one you feel like watching at any given time. And like, that is something really unique and special and cool. And like, again, makes it more of an interactive special than just a little game you're playing where you're pressing buttons with the characters.
Yeah. All right. Well, then I want to talk a little bit about some of the history of the interactive film, which all of these on Netflix are posted as interactive films, even though, as Derek said, they almost exclusively are from television series, outside of a couple that are like film based. There's a Puss in Boots one. There's a Boss Baby one. Did you, first of all, did you look up the titles of the available 25 entries that were in this, Derek?
I saw a list of things. Like, I actually was reading a ranking like someone made of like the Netflix specials based on like how much the choices impact things. So I saw the titles from that, but I don't remember any of them. I know Puss in Book was one of them, but that's really the only one.
Puss in Book. Yeah, that was the Puss in Boots. They had a Captain Underpants one. I think the ones that dropped my jaw a little bit is that 4 of the 25 that were released for Netflix were all from the Man vs. Wild series of Bear Grylls. Grillis, whatever.
It's Bear Grylls, right?
I don't know. He drinks his own pee. That's literally all I know about this man. And I could have made him do that on screen, I suppose. But the sort of rating on these have been gone since December, so Derek and I didn't even have a chance on these.
Yeah.
But the rating on all of these is like, you either like instantly died or you continued the story. And that actually does seem to be the way that Netflix treated most of its interactive films. So Bandersnatch and even Kimmy versus the Reverend were so different because you could actually, continue the story and not just be like, do you pet this jaguar? Oh, you no longer have a hand. You are dead.
Yeah. I think, I think part of it is probably it's hard to write and make these things because you have to coordinate so many different versions and branching story choices. And the more you commit to branching a story choice, the more extra stuff you're gonna have to write in film, right? So like, I totally understand why these other ones that I imagine have a lower budget than Black Mirror and Kimmy Schmidt, like two of Netflix's biggest properties of all time, they're going to have a smaller budget, which means that they're going to have less capability to like branch out. And also a lot of these are made for children too. I know the Bear Grylls one, I guess, isn't, but like the majority of them are made for children. So they know that it's going to be like, you're working with a relatively short attention span. And you don't want kids to just dip out. So like you do want to keep the choices limited enough that they can finish it in like 20 to 30 minutes. And I imagine with like the Bear Grylls one, it's like, how much could, I don't know, that probably was like would be really hard. How easy is it to film multiple versions of him dying in different ways,
Right. Well, I according to the article that I read, it wasn't even that he watched him die. It would like zoom in on the jaguar and be like, and you met with a terrible fate. Sort of like Zork. Like this isn't even like interactive film anymore. Yeah. This is just sort of like taking the fail path and being like, you died.
That it feels like the like Windows 95 game you would have gotten, like the tie-in game you would have gotten, Yes. Although that puts it a little bit more on par with things like the X-Files game. That's true. Other FMV that, not that we grew up with, but that were available to us. I don't know that you ever messed with any of those because I know I didn't. I'm aware of them, but yeah, it wasn't a thing that I spent a lot of time with. But it does make it feel kind of throwbacky in that way. Yeah.
I think my favorite one from this list that I didn't get a chance to watch because it was gone in December, not an only favorite because it sounds stupid as all get out, was Escape the Undertaker, a story of 3 WWE wrestlers who had to go steal the source of the Undertaker's power, his magic urn, from his haunted house. And I just, you know what? I love it.
Wrestling seems like a fantastic like source for this type of thing, like that perfect platform for an interactive thing, because it's already over the top and it's already big characters, and like you get to and you can literally choose like who wins or loses based on what wrestlers are, theoretically. So yeah, that I'm surprised that there wasn't more of that, other than probably just a budget thing.
Yeah, but then you're right, there was so much else of this was childlike, and that's fine. Interactive media for children has been around forever. It's in fact the first interactive film that came to the United States. Derek, do you know what it is? Came in 1983.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
What's interesting is I'm going to say it, and you are going to know, it was Dragon's Lair.
Oh, I guess, that makes sense. I guess I just didn't think of it like that.
With the release of Laserdisc technology, we were able to put on an animated interactive film that a player could feed quarters into in an arcade cabinet, in order to make branching decisions. And then later, if you were, I don't know, like a millionaire and you had a Laserdisc in your home, God, Derek, I hope you don't tell me you had a Laserdisc in your home.
I didn't, but I knew plenty of people who did.
That is wild.
I own Terminator 2 on Laserdisc. Well, I was gifted that. I can't take credit. That was Chris gave it to me because he does have a Laserdisc player. So yeah,
that's incredible. Yeah. The only people I knew that had access to a Laserdisc when I was a child, because 1983, would have been very wealthy people or the school. Our school did have a Laserdisc, and so we did play.
My school did too.
An interactive fiction about like landing on Mars or something. And we had to like make decisions as a classroom, and the teacher would put that in, and then we would like die or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess like those things just sort of eventually got superseded by CD-ROM computer games where you could do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause the Laserdisc famously was too big. Like people weren't into it, and they damaged easily, as you may know from taking care of one now that is in your possession.
Yeah, I mean,
I love that you have Terminator.
Yeah,
it makes me happy.
There's certain,
but you have no means to play it, right?
Not right now, but I mean, you can buy a Laserdisc player, not right now in my own home, but like I can find access to one for sure. And there are certain movies where like the best version of it you can get still is the Laserdisc version if you can find it. So yeah.
It's funny because obviously you do host a Godzilla podcast. I was wondering if maybe that was the realm of Godzilla just based on some of the years that Laserdisc came to prominence and that it was a much bigger deal in Japan.
Godzilla 1985. Well, this is funny. The American version 1985, I think the best quality that you can, I think the best quality of it currently you can find of the Godzilla 1985, the American cut with Raymond Burr in it is Laserdisc, because that's not one that they're like that Toho is particularly proud of or anything. So it's not a movie that gets re-released. And of course there's always going to be weird rights issues because of the America-Japanese thing, since it was an American cut of it. So it's not a thing that gets re-released ever. So I think that like the best quality one you get is the if you find the rips of it online, the file is ripped from the Laserdisc. Anyway, that's a whole other tangent.
No, interesting. This is all interesting to me just because when I was like, when did interactive film start? Like I was shocked to learn that nobody was doing some like weird experimental, like go into theater 3 if you want to do this, go into theater 5 if you want to do that.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, like, because when you first said experimental film, my first thought was like, oh, literally in a theater. But it's like, yeah, there would be the closest thing you could get to things like that were like, it's not the same, but like stuff like Clue having like different endings depending on which theater you were in. That's not the same as an interactive film, but it is something like experimental that makes you engage with it in a different way, because it revolves around you knowing about movies and talking to other people and discovering it. But like, what else could you do? Like, other than like sliding a general, like a literal, like amusement park sort of interactive setup. Like that would be the only thing, but it's not something you could have out in wide release theaters.
And I think maybe the reason for that is that gaming did sort of take all of our interest in sort of the narrative living interactively and turned it into text adventures and then CD-ROM FMV based adventures, because this medium, gaming as a medium, was a lot easier to do that in. And that's what made Netflix's decision in 2017 to do this as a whole business strategy a little surprising.
Yeah. Do you know from what you've read, like if Netflix has talked about their reasoning to do it? Because I have a theory, but
What's your theory? Because I bet you're closer than you're farther away from.
My theory is that they were interested in pivoting to gaming anyway, and this was sort of the middle ground to get in that direction.
You are exactly right. And for that, we have to turn to a man named Mike Verdu, who was hired from Netflix to do interactive media and then was transitioned into being the quote, and I can't find a better title for him, gaming boss at Netflix, that was responsible for negotiating the purchase of games that could be streamed onto phones, tablets, and other media, which Netflix continues to offer to this day.
Do you know a single person who uses Netflix gaming?
I was going to ask you the exact same thing. It's interesting because there are actually things in the catalog, because every once in a while when I pop up in Netflix, it'll force gaming upon me.
Yeah.
And I think like, I've wanted to play Cozy Grove. It looks cozy and in a grove. And those are like words that work for me.
Yeah.
But I would never launch a game off of Netflix because I'm 42 years old.
Right.
And that seems insane to me.
I guess like... And I guess if you are because there is a whole world of people who just exclusively play mobile games, and that's the only type of game that they play. Like those things are very popular. It's why you hear ads on podcasts for mobile games, like June's Garden or whatever, Maniac Mansion, my biggest obsession of a piece of media that I've never engaged with anything other than the marketing, but I fucking love the marketing for Maniac Mansion. Not Maniac Mansion. Merge Mansion. Yeah.
Which I during our early internet friendship implied to you. Yeah. During our early internet friendship, I implied to you that the ending of that involved Vor. And I just remember sending you an image of the grandmother from Merge Mansion with a note on her hand that says, "He is inside me." It was my favorite stupid thing I've ever made.
Yeah. It's incredible. I mean, like, I'm sure the game sucks, but the narrative storyline compelling. I was in for every single ad they ever released. I wish they continued to make more. Kathy Bates' best role. She shouldn't have done Matlock. That should have been her final film role.
Incredible.
But incredible. But all that's to say, like, there is a huge world for it. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of those things where it's sort of like, no one fucking uses Netflix for gaming. And then you like look at the actual hard numbers and it's like, no, a lot of people do. It's just people that we're not friends with.
Exactly. And like, I also recognize that I think that I, as an elder millennial, have this visceral reaction to using Netflix to it. But I think that elder Gen X and even boomers might be like, this is awesome because I'm getting more bang for my buck.
That's true. Probably so. Yeah.
But here's the deal. It doesn't actually work for every device that plays Netflix. It works best on your mobile devices and it works best on your computer. Netflix says most people don't use their computer, that most people use a mobile device. I use an Apple TV.
Yeah, I use my fucking television to watch television and movies, but apparently I'm the crazy person in 2025.
Well, same. Well, and Derek, how did you play Bandersnatch? Or how did you watch Bandersnatch?
On my television.
How did you watch Bandersnatch?
With a remote.
Okay. What type of way do you get Netflix on your television? Is it a smart TV?
I have Google. I have Google TV.
Okay. Yeah. So I tried to do it on my Apple TV, and instead of launching Bandersnatch, I was treated to a custom-made message featuring clips from Black Mirror, and I also captured it, clips from Kimmy Schmidt of them apologizing that this would not work on my device. After a falling out between Apple and Verdue, in which they claimed that their remote technology was proprietary, Verdue was like, well, then we just won't stream on Apple devices.
That's bananas.
Apple TV, very specific. I could run it on my laptop, which is a Mac, but the Apple TV will not play any interactive media and cannot do most of the games that are available. Should you be interested in gaming on your television.
Fascinating. That's so fascinating. Wow. Okay.
We're not done with Verdue, but just set him aside from now. A smarter David, a better David, a David who wasn't doing this the night these were evaporating, might have captured these better. I just held my phone up to the screen and captured it. But I did get video of both of these because it is now like you can never get that error message again now that these are gone. And those error messages probably weren't even captured in the other things that have been downloaded to recreate the Bandersnatch or Kimmy versus the Reverend experiences that some people are making available online.
Wow. That's bananas.
So I could share them with you. They're not that particularly interesting, but
like Kimmy herself showing up and apologizing, like.
For the Kimmy versus the Reverend, it was actually the robot Yukiko came and danced around on my screen and said, like, isn't it fun watching Kimmy Schmidt, but you can't watch this?
That's really fun.
And then the Bandersnatch one was just a lot of characters from throughout Black Mirror season 1 through 5 saying the word sorry, which they do a lot, is what I learned from this.
Interesting.
But anyway, I can share them with you.
Yeah.
We post them online. This is my contribution to the whole experience.
Yeah.
Okay, last thing on Verdue, and the decision to get away from this is not just an investment in gaming, but Verdue did get a sort of new title as part of all of this. He is now the vice president of Gen AI for games at Netflix.
Cool. Great guy. Great job. Great world we currently live in.
Yeah, so the company is not interested in building interactive titles anymore per Verdue and the sort of profile that GameFile did with him. They are interested in moving into media that can be gamified using generative AI. A sentence that I read 3 or 4 times and couldn't like fucking get my head around.
Yeah, like I mean, yeah, I don't really know what that would necessarily look like. That would be, I mean, would it just end up circling back to being like interactive specials again, except now you just have characters, like AI generated characters making the responses based on your choices or something? What else would it be?
I truly can't get my mind around it, because I think that the idea of generative artificial intelligence having the capacity to write a cohesive narrative period is impossible.
Yeah, but that's the thing that tech bros are going for right now, is just sort of like, well, imagine you watch a movie and didn't like the ending, and then you could just make the ending be whatever you want. And it's like, well, you know, you're defeating the entire purpose of storytelling art, but sure, whatever. Yeah, man, that's fine. Just everyone just imagine what they want to see. And we're just going to all live in different realities. I'm sure that's going to help the state of a world that's completely undivided, where everyone is always on the same page all the time.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So it's funny because I don't think that you and I were like, everyone should be participating in interactive film at Netflix. I don't think that we were ever banging that drum.
No.
I think that Bandersnatch was a uniquely interesting experience, especially as a Black Mirror property.
Yeah, it's a novelty. Like, it's not, this shouldn't be where the direction of film goes at all.
Yeah. It's a novelty, a lot like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle ice cream head from an ice cream truck, but it should be on the shelf, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I think the removal of this and the promotion of this guy into VP of Gen AI games is telling a story about a dark and different approach that Netflix wants to take to its art. And that's where I thought, you know, if we are going to get into a point where you can just be like, I didn't like the end of Game of Thrones, get in line. I would like the computer to change it for me. I don't know, like, learn to write fanfic. I don't know what to say about all this.
Well, it's like, what is the point ultimately? And I think it's that just goes, I think you can spin off into a whole other tangent about, like, you know, the difference between, like, well, what do you want from your art? Do you want, you know, a human coming up with a story that's like helping, you know, that's a thing that you can engage with and experience and sometimes even learn from or process emotions? Or do you just want, like, a computer just feeding you content to keep your eyeballs entertained so you cannot be bored and be distracted from the miserable life that you lead and the terrible world that you live in, and then nothing else? And I guess some people want that, but also, like, some people, if you want to just be distracted, like, real people can also make that at the same time. It's like, yeah. And it's also like, I think the thing with the Netflix specials is that the from my reading of the less good ones, the people that have criticisms about the Netflix specials, what they don't like about it is that the choices are just sort of like very boring or obvious. And when people did like the Bandersnatch special, because that's universally the most well-liked one, like, it's because it was really challenging and unexpected and creative. Like, it was coming from people who were just trying to make unexpected choices and try to, like, almost break the system as much as they possibly could with the idea of branching storytellings. And the generative AI thing wouldn't be doing that, because it's going to be based on the input that it's given, which is like the most basic storytelling beats and tropes that it's going to try to feed at you, especially if this is all meant to, you know, please you, and then just, like, give it the 2 thumbs up at the end of watching, you know?
Yeah. But in general, I don't know that anyone's canceling their Netflix subscription because these interactive films went away.
I think most people forgot about that they existed, and I didn't know about any of them other than the Black Mirror Kimmy Schmidt one. I remember being like, they should make more of these for kids, and then, like, looking at the list, and it's like there's like 10,000 of them for children, actually, that I just never heard of.
Yeah. But, like, well done, Derek. Like, that was, I do think it's a fun market. I think it's a special type of child. Like, I don't think you can give it to a 3-year-old because they're not ready to, like, make a choice, period.
Yeah.
But, like, a 6, 7, 8-year-old, that's like a perfect age for a choose your own adventure book, which I guess if we were going to try to do in the modern era would be this interactive film of Boss Baby or Carmen Sandiego, Steal or No Steal.
I heard that was a good one. I heard that people really liked that one.
It sounded great. And I mean, Netflix's Carmen Sandiego is pretty well reviewed and pretty well loved. I've never engaged with it, but it looks fun as hell. I mean, I like Carmen Sandiego. And
I do think that this was not their intention when Netflix was doing it, but, like, there's something interesting to it, sort of combating the age we live in, where it's like the short attention spans and the, like, only half paying attention to anything you watch. Like, you can't be on your phone when you're watching an interactive special because you have to be paying attention to make the choices when they pop up. And for kids especially, it's sort of like, you know, I know from a lot of parents, like, that it's just a thing for kids is just, like, put them in front of a tablet or phone and they're just, like, scrolling through random YouTube videos and just watching things for 2 seconds and then moving on. And, like, this is a thing that kind of theoretically can help hook kids, have them keep their attention with it, while also, like, having a narrative be given to them, you know, which some kids these days maybe need to have.
Yeah. One last fun question mark thing about this is that the company that republishes the old, like, quote unquote choose your own adventure books, maybe ones that you and I actually like picked up at garage sales or bought at Barnes and Noble or whatever, they own the trademark for choose your own adventure, literally those words.
Really?
And the original promotion of Bandersnatch did call it a choose your own adventure story. And so ChooseCo sued Netflix and did settle out of court for an undisclosed amount in November of 2020. They were intending to go to court as long as February 2020, but then something might have happened that made a out of court settlement a little bit more intriguing for Netflix and ChooseCo, because they were pretty much not willing to come to the table before the pandemic, and then afterwards were a little bit more negotiative.
Yeah. God, but I don't know how much of a difference it would have made, but that branding is so appealing and everyone knows what it is, that like I almost wonder if they should have just like partnered with them and been like, we'll make this a co-production. So they could have used that name and maybe even gotten some feedback, writers and consultation from people who write those books to make better specials in some cases, but I don't know. I don't know how much of a difference it would have ultimately made, but.
Well, if folks are interested in engaging with this today, too bad you can't do it on Netflix, but, people have already taken the source files and recreated this right now as of recording this, but who knows in the couple weeks that it takes for this to come out. Right now you can go to playbandersnatch.com and play this episode or this interactive film. Everything is there. There is no way to patent or restrict the idea of making a decision to play 2 video files. That is out there in the world. Right. And so the infrastructure of the experience already exists. It would only be the video files that could be copyrighted, and then Netflix should enforce and take down if they're going to hold their copyright seriously. But right now that has not happened. And so playbandersnatch.com is currently working as of this morning.
That is really cool. I think it is kind of a bummer because I know that they sort of created their own custom branch manager system for this. And like
they did.
Like I don't know, sell that to someone. If you don't want to host these, then like sell that system to someone else. So another platform, like I could easily see a platform that's like, it would be niche, but there could be a platform that is specifically like you download this app and all we make and produce and host our choose your own adventure, like videos, and maybe they're like quick 10-minute ones or whatever, but it's like there's not really a place to do that now that has that. And it's like you have this whole fucking system you built that like it's not just that the episodes are gone, but it's like the sort of platform that you've built for it and system that you have that works mechanically also is gone too. Because my understanding is that it's still not going to work necessarily. It's less likely to work as well on these sort of emulators that are being created as it would have worked on Netflix, because it's not its original system. Just like emulating any video game,
Absolutely. Yeah. It's rife for a lot of issues, and Bandersnatch in particular did really push the envelope, because and the story that it tells is about a man who's struggling with a game that he's making that is about making binary decisions. Despite it looking and feeling like that, there is a lot of under the hood calculation that is being done about sequences that you have seen 7 steps from them. How does that influence your decision way back here in the narrative? It is truly more robust than the Bear Grylls of all of this, like, which is yes or no.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's really cool. Why Bandersnatch I think stands out so much. Like, it doesn't even matter if you care about the story of that one or anything at all, but like the actual mechanics of its gameplay are so fascinating, because it's like there are specifically some scenes and things that are actually hard to get, because it's not as simple as a binary choice and you go down a different path. It is like, no, you have to make these certain choices in this certain order and make these choices multiple times when you've gone back and do it before you can even open up the possibility of going down this path. Like, it is incredibly complex and is like, again, encouraging you to go back and restart it and replay it and things like that. And the other thing I liked about the Netflix system is that like you can, just like you rewind an episode of a show, you can go down and like kind of rewind back to certain choices you made before. So if you want to cheat a little bit and be like, I don't like the choice I made a few steps before, I'm going to go specifically back to that one and start that branch rather than starting it all the way over. Like, that system's really cool too. And that's a thing that I think is hard to replicate on a lot of modern systems.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I loved Will Poulter, the the kid from We're the Millers being like, want to drop some acid together. That was my only other favorite thing from all this, just because I was like, yeah, get it, dude.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah. I also think like the Kimmy Schmidt one I alluded to a little bit. Like I think the interactivity of it was a little bit hit or miss, but I do think there's something to that one that's so fascinating because it is basically the Kimmy Schmidt movie. Like it is a sequel movie that takes place after the TV show that reunites that cast, a few years after that show had ended. And so to lose, like, that is the thing that is like a piece of canon for that show that's really interesting that is getting lost from it. Cause like that is the epilogue to the Kimmy Schmidt TV show. And I do think that there is something unique about that in that, like, you couldn't do this with everything. Well, like Kimmy Schmidt had the sense of humor where I think an interactive special where they're sort of meta about it and commentating on it makes sense. But also like there is something interesting about like if it is specifically a story about characters you're familiar with getting a happy ending and your interactivity is basically helping them get their perfect happy ending. I think that's just a really charming use of the interactive idea.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. Although I guess then the dark reflection of that, the Black Mirror episode, is that the ending is like the most disturbing ending, or at least the ones that I experienced it was not about happiness. It was sort of about how this character was miserable because we had forced to do this. And now future characters will end up miserable because we were successful in making our decisions.
But I do think the Kimmy Schmidt one does encourage you by having the character stuff and be like, that was the wrong ending. That's not how it's going to end. Just do it again. Right. Like they do have characters tell you to do that. So it's like, they are specifically kind of hand holding to be like, this isn't how you want this to end, right? Come on, like start it over, make the better choice. And then you kind of know where to go from there. I do think that is unique and that wouldn't work for everything, but I think it works for Kimmy Schmidt because again, it being an epilogue, the whole point of it is to just be like, let's give these characters a happy ending. And if you messed up one part of it, you can pretty easily figure out what the right direction to go in is, restart it. And it's not that long if you go through the whole thing again, as long as you like the characters enough to be willing to rewatch it. And that is part of it, is that you do have to be willing to rewatch things over and over again. And not everyone's into that. And a lot of people don't have time for that. So like, I kind of get that being unappealing.
That's fair.
But that's fair. For properties that I really like, I could do it for. So it just kind of depends, I don't know. I do think it's interesting that like the two biggest ones with Black Mirror and Kimmy Schmidt, again, it's because they're the big Netflix properties, but I do think it's interesting that both of them are like the two most incredibly meta about it being a choose your own adventure. Like they are all commentating on this being a choose your own adventure thing, which I do find sort of fascinating. And I wonder if like, I don't know if there's a way that you could really play it straight without doing that for a serious non-children's property, without people being, because it's always going to be a little bit weird and awkward, especially when you have characters that are sort of like, which thing do you want to do? And then they're just sitting there for a minute making the choice while the timer's ticking down for you to do it. Like there's no way for that to not be awkward, and you buy into it in these things when they're sort of commentating on like, it's just a simple choice or whatever, making jokes about it. But there's only so many times you can tell that joke before it gets sort of old, and maybe 2 was the max. I don't know. Maybe
we'll have to see what comes next in the next 4 years from the streamer. I don't know. This whole thing and doing all this background, I kind of did ask the question like, why am I subscribing to Netflix? Like most of the things I love are done. What's keeping me around?
It's hard. I mean, so we recently had, Hamish Steele on Falling with Style for our special presentation. And one of the reasons that we made sure we wanted to get him on for that mini series for anything was to also talk about his experience working on a children's production with queer representation on it. And the big thing that we talked about was Dead End Paranormal Park, which also is done and canceled. But the thing that he kept going back to, that sort of the weird thing about Netflix is that like, we all understandably and rightfully focus on like how much stuff gets canceled. But the reason so much stuff gets canceled is because they also greenlight the shit out of everything all the time. It's sort of like, well, that means they're just like greenlighting a bunch of like schlock probably, but it also means they're greenlighting a lot of like indie things or like from artists who otherwise aren't going to get picked up by any other network, and then letting them do whatever the fuck they want. So it is a little bit weird. So it's like this weird catch-22 that it's just like, well, they're doing good by allowing creators whose voices aren't often getting expressed, especially from like, diverse populations often, and being able to express that. because they're greenlighting so much stuff, but then also because they're greenlighting so much stuff, if it's not a fucking Stranger Things level hit, it's going to get canceled, you know? So it's like, which universe do you like? Choose your own adventure. Which universe do you want to live in? A universe where you get one season of a creator getting to express their voice, but then it gets canceled too soon, or where they just never get any show picked up ever, and you never get even one season of it. You know, I don't know. You know, Netflix has also made other bad decisions, but like that is one factor that I think is worth focusing. That is worth thinking about. That I think we kind of often forget because we are only focusing on the annoying tech bro stuff and the cancellation side of it. You know, they're not a perfect company, to be clear. Made a lot of mistakes, but there are still interesting things that the company is doing that other media corporations are not.
Yeah. And I was blasé about their gaming, but they are paying the developer the same way that Sony is paying for people to be on the PlayStation catalog, or Microsoft is paying for people to be on their Xbox Game Pass. That it is all analogous in the gaming market. So the same story ends up true. Just because the gaming market, for me, I'm having trouble swallowing the idea of Netflix being available to stream video games.
Yeah.
I stream them other places. I don't know why that's a hard thing for me. And it does ultimately give independent developers another opportunity to get noticed. Maybe not forever, but for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The whole thing's wild. It
is.
Truly.
And it's still, at the end of the day, all that stuff I think is really interesting, but it does at the end of the day come down to, there's a whole host of media that they created, not they created, but they had created, funded the creation of, supported the creation of, built an entire platform to host, and then we're sort of like, never mind. And now it is technically in like lost media. Like I know people have done their best to preserve as much as they can of these, so it's not as lost media as other lost media is, but in a way it is, because you can't play it in the way that it was intended to be played. And until someone can get their hands on Netflix's proprietary setup and fully recreate it just as Netflix did, it is the way that it was hosted on Netflix is lost media now. You can't play Bandersnatch and Kimmy Schmidt and Carmen Sandiego and all the other ones in the way that the creators intended, and probably didn't expect that within 5 years would be gone.
Yeah, gosh, the Kimmy Schmidt one actually was like one of the more recent ones.
It's like 2020. That was literally 5 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so wild.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Well, Apple TV Plus, pick up the banner, give us the end of Mythic Quest, and let us choose which ending we get.
I mean,
or whatever you want to do.
That would be perfect for Mythic Quest, a show about people making video games. But then it might be a little bit too close to Bandersnatch, the meta level of it, you know? But I could see it.
Whatever. Oh, Derek, this was fun to talk about, even though it was a little sad and depressing. I'm glad we had a chance to do these. I'm sorry we had to do them so last minute.
That's okay. I mean, but I don't know. I probably never would have seen the Kimmy Schmidt one at all if I hadn't been pushed to do this, you know, to make sure I caught it before it left. Like, I really do wonder what the uptick in numbers they got from people watching these before they left were. You know?
Right. And then who spun that to mean what in the boardroom also is very interesting to me. Because one of the other things I did find from all of this, because I was astounded that neither of these titles had like a leaving soon or anything on their splash page.
Rude. So rude.
Well, I was used to that being on everything. Like if I pulled up a movie and it was going to be gone at the end of May, there would be like 100 messages being like leaving in May. That has not been part of Netflix's thing for over a year and a half.
Really?
They had substantial user feedback that seeing that made them want to change their membership options. That if they knew that something was leaving, they might not be as apt to continue to pay for the subscription service. Whether that is just people in a focus group with donuts saying it or actual user behavior. But that apparently has been a pretty wide change on a lot of things. They no longer list them as leaving the service.
I mean, I guess it makes sense because, again, Netflix does have, it is the perception of it, like you're saying, it does have the perception of it as being the platform that cancels everything. It also is the platform that like used to be the only one of these that had everything, and now it doesn't actually have much compared to like Tubi. So I could sort of see how that doesn't help their perception.
Right? Isn't that weird? You're right though. It was sort of like everything was sort of on Netflix at a time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a thing people complain about all the time, that it's all been divided amongst multiple streaming platforms, and that makes people be a lot more picky about which ones they choose.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I'm only picky in that I don't want to pick another one. Sorry, Peacock. I just can't have another one. I've drawn the line, and it was you. I apologize. One day I will see Poker Face. It's just not now.
Yeah. Well, so you just use my method of just like every month you watch whatever you can for a month and then cancel it, and then maybe resubscribe 6, 7, 8 months later, or whenever you have to do a Gimmicks episode on something on that platform. Then it's like, well, I guess I'll have Paramount Plus for a little while, and then I'll finish a show, and then it's like, now I don't anymore.
No, I don't anymore. No, I don't anymore. I'm a weird user. Get me in a focus group. I could go for a donut.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. Anything else?
I don't have anything else on the interactive media from Netflix. I'm sorry that it's gone. I had a great time with it. I'm glad that we did this.
I am too. Yeah. R.I.P. Pour one out for the interactive specials. Yeah.
But if you'd like to pour one out for us, what a terrible transition, but keep it in, Derek. You can obviously tip us if you'd like to give Derek and I a little tip. You can do so by going to kofi.com/gimmickspod. And of course, if you would like to follow the podcast, we are available at gimmickspod on Instagram and Blue Sky.
Yeah. Until next time.
Keep being weird.
Choose your own adventure.